redeem you. Don't let the setbacks defeat you. Let your comeback redeem you. Because let me tell you something. You're going to have parties where people are going to say they're going to be there and they're not. This is part of the journey. But you have to be willing to get up, brush yourself off, and keep moving forward. Because as you move forward, you get better and better every single time. So when I started out the business, I was living in a 300 square foot guest house in my best friend's property in the Palm Desert Country Club out here. 300 square feet. You know how big that is? Not big. Okay, now I had this queen size sofa sleeper that when I opened up my sofa sleeper, there was no floor left. So I would have to go from my door, jump onto my bed to actually get to my little bathroom. So I had a bathroom, I had a mini fridge, and 2 hot plates. And I don't know if you've ever tried to make pasta meals on 2 hot plates. It's like 10 hours, okay? And I started in this place. And so one day, my mom and dad decided to come down and see me. They haven't seen me for a while. They know I'm doing this pyramid thing. They were one of my clients. They didn't want to, talk to me. They couldn't figure out how I could be teaching finances when I just bounced 2 checks at the bank. They thought it was insane. And so they come down, and at the time, because I was so broke, I didn't have a lot of food, I was 135 pounds, which obviously doesn't look very good. So I remember my mom knocking on the door, and she opens up the door. She hadn't seen me in probably 6 months. And she opens up the door, and she just stands there. And just does the mom look up and down. And she starts to cry, and she walks away. That's encouraging. So then my dad comes in. My dad comes in, and my dad is a very colorful man, and unfortunately, I cannot really say the things that came out of his mouth. And if all of you know my dad, he's from Argentina, he speaks with an accent, and it's hysterical when he says cuss words with an accent, because they're actually funny. But I won't say that here. But what my dad did is he started cussing me up and down. You went to school you went to school to get a broker, you're a real estate broker, what are you doing this stuff? You're never going to make it, da. And he just went into me. Look at what you did to your mother, look at you, look at this. And then he stopped and he turned around, and he started to walk out the door, and he turned around, and he said the most damaging words that I've ever heard my father say to me. He says, I never thought, son, I would ever say this to you. But at this moment, I'm embarrassed to call you my son. And my dad walked out, and I stood there going, okay, they'll be back. And I'm looking at my watch, and I hear the... I thought, okay, they probably drove around the block. No, they drove home. And I remember sitting on my floor of my little 300 square foot apartment, a little guest house. I was probably in the business 4 or 5 months, whipping out a can of tuna, because that's all I could afford to eat at the time, sobbing my eyes out that my dad was embarrassed to call me his son. Now, in that moment, I had a decision I had to make. And the decision was, do I do what I should do to please my family, or do I do what my heart's telling me to do so I can chase my dreams? And I really believe that was a defining moment in my business. And after praying, I decided that although my parents are going to be upset with me, I'm going to go pursue my dream, because I felt in my heart it was what I needed to do. Now, my father did not talk to me for 2 months. When I went up to see my parents, he just didn't want to, he was embarrassed. He talked to me. But nonetheless, you have people in your life that are just like my dad, and they're trying to rob you of what was given to you. And principle number 3 that I want to share with you to tie into that story is your dreams have to be bigger than the people who are going to try to steal them. See, my dream was bigger than what my dad was trying to do. I know he didn't do it purposely. I know he didn't mean it, but at the same time, it didn't take away the pain of hearing your own father say something. And my father and I are very, very, very close. And to hear my dad say that to me was like taking a bunch of knives and stabbing me in the heart. But I had to make a decision that my dreams were bigger than the people stealing my... How many people do you have have in your lives that make fun of you, that laugh at you, say you're doing that thing, that pyramid thing, you're doing this, you're doing that, and they're trying to dissuade you from doing the business. Let me just give you advice. Don't listen to people who are more screwed up financially than you are. I love how people will get to a business and talk to their bankrupt uncle about what they think of the business. Why don't you go talk to somebody like a Michael Anderson who had the courage as a man to be in a business like this and become an MVP? Go talk to him. Don't go talk to some broke person that doesn't know what they're talking about and get advice from them, because all they're going to tell you is, I don't want you to leave me, so I'm going to tell you everything I need to tell you, so you just stay with me. Listen to people who have been successful ahead of time. And by the way, Michael, I have a lot of respect for you. I just want you to know that. So then my RVP decides to tell me one day at the office, he says, listen, do you really want to win? I'm like, no, I'm just here for fun. I'm getting this for nothing. Yes, I want to win. He says, this is what you need to do. You're going to need to drive up here every Tuesday night for our op meeting and every Saturday morning for our training. I said, wait, you just didn't understand. I live 110 miles away. He says, I understand that. I said, I work as a retail sales manager at Circuit City from 9 to 7, Monday through Saturday. I don't have the time. Ooh, some of you say that all the time. I don't have the time. I can't do it, George. And George looked me in the eye and he said to me, you want to win? You'll be here. If you don't, I'll know what you decided. And I walked out of there, not saying present things, of course, and I thought, what am I going to do? So I decided, I was a retail sales manager. How many of you know if you've ever been in retail and you're a sales manager, it's not easy to change your schedule. You're the manager. So I went in there and I told my boss, look, I have to go to these financial education workshops on Tuesdays and Saturdays because I'm so stinking broke and you don't pay me enough. I need to know how to manage the little money you're giving me, so I need time off. And he says, oh, okay, no problem. I'm like, huh? That was what I was, okay. So here's what I did. Every Tuesday, on Tuesday nights, I went to work from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock, got off of work, hopped in my car, drove to Ontario in traffic for a meeting that started at 7:30, didn't get out of there until 9:30 to drive home, which was an hour and 10 minutes to go to work the next morning. And then on Saturday, I got up at 6 o'clock in the morning, hopped in my car at 6:30, drove to Ontario for a training meeting that went from 8 to 11, left Ontario, crashed home as fast as I could, got my work clothes, and went to work from 1 to 9 on Saturday. And I did that for 2.5 years.
Oh, bravo.
And most of the time, I was talking to my invisible friend Frank, because nobody was coming with me. But I went every Tuesday and every Saturday for 2.5 years because George told me, if you want to win, you'll be here. And we have people that live right over the mountain that couldn't make it here today.
Yep.
Adina, my coaching buddy, 4.5 hours she drove to be here today.
Yay!
You don't think she would have hit? That is unbelievable. So here's the fourth principle I want to share with you. Winners find ways. They do not make excuses. See, I found a way to do it. Was it convenient? No. Was it easy? No. Did I like it? No. That was a long, boring drive. Because how many of you know when you go to meetings by yourself and you're left alone with you and your brain, that is not a pleasant ride home. Your brain is constantly going at it. I stink. My parents were right. My dad was still. What are you doing? You're driving up there. You're putting miles. You're putting your car. What are you doing? You're not going to be able to fix your car. Quiet. I had to silence that noise out of my head. But you know what? I did it. Then they talked about your first convention. The Atlanta, Georgia Dome. 55,000 people went to our conventions every year. They're talking to me about I have to go to a convention. I said, what convention? We got to go to this convention. If you want to win, you got to be there. Yeah. I'm calculating the cost. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be there. I can't afford it. I can't afford it. I can't afford it. And let me tell you something. The more you say you can't afford it, you're right. Change your language, change your verbiage, change what you're saying to yourself. And so, George sat down with me and he says, I'm going to tell you something.